Okay, thank you so much for coming to the AI's third panel, AI's reviewer, and the promise, pitfall, and the possibilities. Okay, so here I'm the moderator, and my name is Minchi. I'm a professor at NC State, North Carolina State University, USA. And here's Ryan. Do you want to introduce yourself? And just basically, each of you have a lot of qualifications, and right now I want to introduce yourself in the sense of why you think the AI, what's your expertise on AI reviewer, and what you think right now the AI reviewer stands for. What's the current status?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm at Adelaide University, so I guess that makes me the token non-American here, so to speak. So I would say that, and I guess, the description of the panel is a little bit peer review. AI is a peer reviewer. That can be, I think, the obvious sense is it's taking the place of some part of traditional peer review and making summative judgments on papers. But it also can be a formative thing and helping us review our papers and figure out how to make them better. And I think and peer review has both those purposes already. I would say that in terms of summative peer review, I've been a program chair many times of many conferences, have reviewed far too many papers in my career and far too many papers for AI and Ed this year. I think we all had that experience. It's great. It's fantastic to see the growth. And have thought a lot about this and use AI to make suggestions on my own work and to critique me all the time. Those are my qualifications for what it's worth.
Hi, I'm Noburo Matsuda. My name is little spelled incorrectly. Noburo. Anyways, from North Carolina State University. Let's see. I am a big fan of AI, again Gen AI, like an LLM, as like many of you are. I believe the Gen AI has a huge potential. It is kind of growing at this moment, right? So it's a little questionable at this moment, but I'm more like positive than negative about using AI as a peer reviewer. My current concern, which may be gone in few years, maybe few months, is like the current AI is missing personality, in my opinion. So it's like, usually if you submit the paper to the conference, you have 3 or 4 reviewers from totally different fields, and then some of them may be totally out of your field, and then they may tell you something you don't even think about. That is missing for the AI review at this moment, because it's more like an average review, right? So then, with this the lack of the personality, I don't think we should rely on AI at this moment. But then I can support the idea of kind of co-working with the AI, right? So you have your own expertise, and then you ask AI to review for yourself, and then you actually start from there, maybe. Or you start from your own review, and then ask AI if the AI agree with your review, right? Something like this. Yeah, other than that, I think I'm happy with kind of living with AI.
Great, thank you. Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Rafferty. I'm from Carleton College, and I'm one of the associate editors at JEDM. I think I am probably less positive than you on AI peer review. I strongly think that generative AI can be really helpful for critiquing and helping authors to understand more like, hey, what might I be missing? What might be points that are not coming through or things that I have missed? But I worry a lot about using AI for peer review in a sort of summative sense, partially on an empirical basis, but kind of more fundamentally, when I think about the purpose of peer review and thinking about what is a peer and what do we want these reviews to do? And I see them both as, yes, identifying errors in papers or identifying some places that like, hey, this didn't quite this doesn't show what you claim it does. That's important. I also think that peer review is part of the values and norms that make up our field, and that the human opinions in there are very important for shaping how our field evolves. I worry about too much homogenization with, if we were to replace human peer reviewers with AI peer reviewers, as well as kind of where we are situating our values and input into kind of our scientific enterprise. But I share Ryan's views on potential of sort of critique, and I also share your views, Noburo, on thinking about ways that Gen AI might be able to serve as an assistant to a human reviewer. I really think that this is an opportunity, as we're talking more about potential AI peer review, to think about how can we make human peer review better, and how can we figure out how to really situate what I think is an incredibly important part of our scientific process, but that I think is under-incentivized and under-trained in how we currently do it.
Thank you. Marcus?
Hey, my name is Marcus. I'm affiliated with the Technical University of Delft, and since last year I lead a center in a research center in Germany, affiliated with a distance university in Germany. I would like to approach the topic probably from the perspective on the one hand, educational perspective, because one of the first scenarios we used a lot of AI as with bachelor and master students writing their final papers, for example, and this was a formative feedback process where students can learn a lot from very simple characteristics on which they get feedback for their papers, to structural, to more in-depth. So I see it as a kind of playground and learning aid where I see a real benefit. Also, I see a potential for baselining things really in scenarios that are used with other associations. AAAI, for example, use it as to have a peer AI reviewer in a scenario with other reviewers, just to compare and baseline these things. And I think we should look at the topic also as from a more general question, in the sense of using AI in the research workflow, supporting different functions in that, while still keeping human oversight. Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, great. So I think the best part, you answer first my question, but not my second question. So I think AI is interdiscipline, and as far as you know from the conference, on the top AI conference, and the HCI conference, and education conference, and we know AI, AAAI, they all have. So as far as you know, what are the conferences in each of the three fields? Which one already take AI peer review and how they do it? Anyone? Is the question clear? So from like AI field conferences, as far as you know, what are the conferences take and how they take the AI reviewer? They take as a peer reviewer, only senior is considering the AI review, or it's just not, the AI reviewer's opinion is not counted, and the same for education field, and the same for CHI field, like human-computer interaction.
So just to check, you're asking how do the different conferences in different fields use AI as peer reviewer right now?
What do you guys know of? Yeah.
I guess I can speak a little bit to AAAI and NeurIPS. So AAAI, as Marcus mentioned, the last time around they did an experiment. They have a two-phase reviewing, so there's phase one, and then some papers move forward to phase two. And in phase one this last time, there was an AI-generated review, clearly marked and known to everybody that it was AI-generated. They used a particular pipeline to produce that review, kind of structured to make sure, because just saying, hey, whoever, LLM, go review my paper doesn't produce very quality reviews, but they had a structure for that. Then they had at least 2 human reviewers at phase 1, and then the area chair had all 3 of those to get information about. One thing that maybe is crucial to note in this AAAI version of this is the AI peer reviewer didn't provide numeric scores, so it provided strengths and weaknesses, and there are a couple other things I think in the structured review, but not numeric scores. I don't believe that AI reviewing was used in phase 2 separately, but that was part of in the phase 1, which helps make decisions for phase 2. But the area chairs, human area chairs, made the decision for what to go forward. At NeurIPS, this is not precisely peer reviewer, but I'm going to bring it in anyway, which is that all authors could have a paper reviewed by an AI, their paper reviewed at most once prior to submission. So this is kind of an example of using the idea of AI as peer reviewer, not to make a decision about a paper, but as sort of formative assessment for the authors to consider and be able to incorporate before the final submission deadline.
Great. Nani, go ahead.
In education, I know of one example, which is the journal, Teachers College Record. Going back to before large language models, at one point, I don't even know if they still do it, but at one point they actually had a machine learned model trained on their desk rejects that they used to make desk rejects. So they didn't actually provide a review on it. They just said, is this paper likely to be desk rejected by the editor? And if it was, they went ahead and did that because they had such an overflow of papers that they could not even assign editors to do all the desk rejects.
Wow. So the AI make a decision?
So to my knowledge, the AI actually made the decision to desk reject about a little over half the submissions they got.
Wow. Okay.
No, to my knowledge, no human in that loop.
That's quite interesting because yesterday the Journal of AID editorial board had a discussion to maybe introduce the kind of AI screening for disk rejection, not actually rejecting, but provide a feedback like your paper is highly likely get rejected, right? The disk rejected, right? Because of that kind of stuff. I have a little uncomfortable feeling that the AI makes decision at this moment, right? You know, even when human in the loop, maybe, right? Because human can be biased if AI says, right? I don't know. But if the AI make a feedback, like, you know, it's highly likely your paper is going to be suggested, the author has an opportunity to actually revise the paper, make it better.
I was not actively involved in any conference or with a journal so far that used it actively in scans. I mean, I didn't mention that at the beginning, co-editor-in-chief with the Journal of Artificial Intelligence and Education, I think, and we just went from Springer to Elsevier. I think with Springer there was some pre-screening, but it basically gave you an indication, and it was mixed a little bit with IPR issues and related other work, so self-plagiarism checks and stuff. So it was unclear where there was no clear indication of what is generated or not. But I think the point of human oversight is an interesting one. And now I lost my other point. But I think it's really essential to look at the different parts of the process and where it is used. And I can definitely see such a model. Probably one thing to mention is the risk when you use these systems, especially when you use open systems. This was my second point. I learned today actually that the new policy at Elsevier strictly forbids reviewers, for example, to use open LLM systems to check for either check a paper. So we would really need to come up what Ryan mentioned, like with a self-trained model, probably that clearly where's the control about where this information goes, what the training data comes from, and so on, to have a good idea, for example, to support the first phase of desk rejects, which is definitely a problem.
Okay, thank you. So now here are the 3 questions, and we are going to go over, and just everyone read. Okay. Once, twice, 3 times. Done. We good? Okay, so the first one is going to be the AI as a peer review, the SWOTs. Okay, so the strengths, weakness, opportunity, and threat. We talk about mention some of them. So let's start with the optimistic. Each of us talk about strengths. Okay, start with Marcus.
Yeah, I took some notes, so preparing for that. And I mentioned already some points. I think there's some nice work, and that is one of the experience I made now in the first 2 years for being the co-editor-in-chief. I think baselining in reviews is an important issue. So, and I think we could use some peer AI reviews for these. Yeah. So baselining, I mean, also humans and different reviewers have different opinions about papers. You have different expertise that you use to judge papers. So this evaluative judgment aspects, I think there we can bring in a lot of interesting aspects from AI. So consistency and baselining, efficient recognition or early phase desk rejections. I think there are definitely some good things to do with, and so the simpler the task, the better to use the models for. And also I want to stress that basically what we're talking about, I think it's a question of scale, right? That isn't one of the initial problems, yes, because you have so many papers to look at. If we would have a tenth of the submissions, we would simply take the time to read the papers and understand what is written there, but it's a problem of scale. So that is probably an important issue to take with. Yeah, that's a bit about strengths I see.
Great. Anna? Strength.
Yeah. So I think some of the strengths have already been mentioned of critiquing a paper, providing feedback to authors. I think also maybe there's potential for AI to help people improve their peer reviews. So I think it would be interesting to explore what if we had, say, LLMs give feedback to reviewers about the constructiveness of their reviews or kind of critiquing those reviews. That wouldn't necessarily have to be just about did you notice all of the important things in the paper, but thinking about how we get people to comment on different areas of concern in the paper, how we get people to make the reviews be constructive, hopefully actionable, those sorts of things. Yeah.
Noburo?
Yes, so like I said, my primary concern is lack of the personality of AI reviewers. So the funny thing is that anecdotally speaking, I see that nowadays, right, if you submit the paper to the venue where you have a chance to rebuttal, and then if you have 4 reviewers, by the time of the 4th reviewer, you simply say, please see my response to reviewers 1 to question 7 and reviewers 2 to question 5, because they are the same thing. Right, so my point is, like, if you have 4 reviewers, they are pretty much overlapping each other. And then I have a strong kind of feeling that they use AI to make those reviews, right? I see the strength of AI, which is kind of summarization, the power of summarization is pretty strong. So then I have this kind of wild idea that the AI can be served as a senior reviewers here to actually summarize the reviewers' reviews, right? So that may be a little safer than asking AI to make a review from scratch.
Good point. Right.
So I don't know quite where strength stops and opportunities begins, but it strikes me that one of the big strengths is that, and it becomes an opportunity, is that there are parts of papers that I think still really require the expert judgment. For example, is this really a contribution? Is this really important? And then there are parts that honestly just about anybody could do and an AI can do. Like, did they botch their stats in a blatantly obvious way? And for that kind of stuff, why would we not just, even if you think about the level of rather than having an AI reviewer and a human reviewer, just every human run it through and say, are there any blatant statistical mistakes here? And then we don't have to like search for those. We can spend the human effort and cognition on the parts that are less straightforward.
Okay, so to summarize, we all agree there's the strength in the efficiency, scale, and also on parts that we think AI can help. But there are certain like novelty and contribution, we do still need a human in the loop, right? Advanced, yeah. And summary of the senior. Okay, weakness now. Anna first.
Okay, weaknesses. Well, you in some ways mentioned the weaknesses in your summary of assessing some of the novelty, making sense of is this a significant contribution? I want to point to sort of two I think they're weaknesses and not threats that I want to bring up that haven't come up previously. So one is about citation suggestion. And I think sometimes we think, oh, the AI will be great. It will suggest additional citations, and they are good at that. But there are also biases in what sorts of citations they suggest. So recent work at NACL and EMNLP finds that they are sort of over-suggest highly cited papers beyond, so amplifying beyond what humans do of favoring highly cited papers. There's a reason they're highly cited, but they do even more than that. Also, controlling for citation count and impact sorts of things. They are less likely to recommend papers with female authors, and also less likely to recommend papers with authors from Asia and South America and Africa. And so I worry about amplifying of biases as we rely on AI for peer review. And then the other thing I want to bring up, I don't know if this is a weakness or a threat, but it's around privacy and thinking about what are the expectations of an author when they submit a paper, and if we insist that they must be okay with AI peer review, it seems like I personally do not think that we should be saying, well, you have to be okay with your paper going to a third party, potentially being used for training and so on. And so I think we need to think about those privacy things, both as what we want to require of authors and making sure that we're transparent with authors.
Thank you. Noburo?
So, like all of us know, right? One benefit of submitting a paper to the top conference is because of the reviews are pretty constructive usually, right? So you can learn from what the reviewer says. If it's an AI without personality, that opportunity gets lower. However, like we know, right, we can actually precisely prompt AI to review this way or that way. If the reviewers actually do so, like if you actually tell AI who you are, like your expertise, and then your personality, maybe, the AI can mimic the review that you may make. So that may actually increase the opportunity to the people learn from your reviews, I think.
Great. Thank you. Ryan?
So I want to kind of meta comment on something Anna said a minute ago, which is the whole function of suggesting papers. I realize this isn't a weakness, I'm sorry. But it's a comment on a weakness. One thing is kind of nice about the idea of LLM citing papers is, I don't know if anybody here has been around long enough to be, to have had, how many people here were around, say, for the first 3 years of EDM? But there was one reviewer in the first 3 years of EDM who every single review they did said at the end of it, and you must to cite, and then they gave their own paper, the citation for their own paper. Always, every review this person did, they always said it with the same grammatical error, and every single time. And you know, I don't think LLMs are gonna have quite that issue that reviewers have. So.
Okay, Marcus.
Yeah, that basically all things have been said. Bias, I completely agree. Privacy, bias, and then confidentiality risk or privacy risks. You need to consider that. And probably one point. As we talk about weaknesses, relates to what Ryan just said, but it is a kind of flip coin thing, yeah? So it depends on how you evaluate or how you look at it. Like proposing or other references, it's really interesting when you look at it, if you would get the task to evaluate the validity of those things, and typically there you can differentiate between the level of expertise that people have to immediately, if you don't give them any digital help, to evaluate a list of references, right? So, but this level of evaluative judgment, like Ryan said at the beginning, like to see, okay, what is new here? Is this innovative? Is this solid work? What is the bigger framing of this? I think these are all things that we really, for now, should leave with human oversight.
Great. So next one is opportunity, and Noburo first.
Opportunity?
Yeah. AI as a reviewer.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Any opportunities
Let's
you
see.
see?
I think I said a
Just
lot
rephrase
about
it.
opportunities already, right?
You did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, opportunity is to me is positive. I would say, but then, like I said, it may take a few more time to actually the Gen AI to grow as reliable as we want.
Great.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a strong supporter to use AI.
We heard that. Great. Thank you. We need a different opinion. Great. Okay. Right?
So there's a lot of opportunities, but let me just share the biggest one. Who here reviewed more than 40 papers this year? Not as many hands as I thought. Who here was asked to review more than 40 papers this year? Yeah. For those of us who get a lot of this, burnout, not being able to do very well in individual reviews. If we want to keep quality up, if everybody's writing their papers with LLMs and then nobody's using LLMs for review, we will simply burn out the people who are kind and willing to review, or the people who are, for whatever reasons, get asked by all the journalists to review. This can opportunity to prevent that.
Marcus?
Probably just one aspect to add is, yeah, scale. That's related to that. Putting the human resources, cognitive resources, into the right place in the whole evaluation and production chain. And just a funny idea, when we started here to come up and discuss, we discussed a little bit about different ways to publish. And JDM is doing self-publishing, IJAD goes with Elsevier now, but I seriously was thinking also about these different ways of publishing, and where why not to put the effort probably also, or the AI in the publishing process. So just as a thought.
Thank you, Anna.
I'm going to end up repeating a little bit what I already said too, which is I think I agree with a lot of folks about opportunities of maybe using LLMs to help with thinking about desk rejections and so on. But I also really do think that this is an opportunity for us to rethink about the value of peer review, because Ryan, absolutely, people are getting burned out on reviews, and I think about how many review requests I send out as an associate editor and nobody even responds. Like, I'm delighted when they tell me no, at least they told me something. But I think that there is also a problem with the way we have organized peer review, that we are thinking, oh, we need to solve this scale problem, let's get AI in there to solve it. I think a different thing to think about is how do we place more value on peer review and really treat seriously that this is something we are all should be doing, and also that none of the incentives are aligned for it. And so that's a trickier problem to solve, but I think that maybe some of maybe the controversy of bringing AI into peer review brings an opportunity for us to really think carefully about what we want peer review to do.
Okay, thank you. So the last one, threads. I think we mentioned some of the threads already. If there's anything you want to add to, Ryan, you can start.
Sure. So first, I'm going to be a bad citizen again and respond to something you said again, which is I also think that there's some bad citizenship on the part of some journals that's causing the problem in part. Discover Education, for example, sends me 3 review requests a week. And I just ignore them at this point. I decided to be a good citizen, go in and say, no, I don't ever want you to send me something again. And the only option I had was to turn off all review requests from their entire publisher. I had no choice to get them. So at this point, I just archive. I should probably actually set up a thing. As far as the other threats go, I do think actually that taken to an extreme, we do not want to hand over judgment over what science is to something that's not human. And I think taken to an extreme, if everything ended up being through an LLM or the primary decider was, that ultimately we don't have to have an ill-intentioned, malevolent AI to think of the possible negative consequences, especially if it becomes over time that certain areas AI just won't accept, right? We already have that problem of there are niche areas. EDM was a niche area at one point that couldn't get accepted for publication. That niche areas will just be unable to break through new paradigms because they don't map to all the stuff already in there. They don't match all the stuff that has been seen as good and highly cited.
Marcus, do you have anything to add?
No, I think it goes in the same direction, just builds on what Ryan said, like that innovative character where you see, okay, where have been the limits of the field? This is restricted to a broader context. And in that sense, yeah, I completely agree to what has been said before.
Great. Anna?
At a slightly subtler level, I think another threat of sort of handing things over to AI for peer review is the possibility of either intended or non-intended manipulation of what that review looks like based on knowing that it's being AI reviewed. So, for instance, there have been some studies looking at AI being more likely to echo what the paper says about the weaknesses of the work or limitations compared to what human reviewers will pick up on. And that has a possibility for kind of manipulation. I don't want that to become an incentive about, oh, I should list the most easily addressable weaknesses in my limitations. I feel like that creates bad incentives. Yes, that can happen with human reviewers too, but at least right now, AI is more susceptible to it.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how the text we upload to the LLM will be used, right? In the past, so we thought those texts will be used to train the models. If that's still happening, then that may be scary. Because all the creative, innovative papers going to be actually read by the machine, and then that will be part of their knowledge. So that's a little scary story. So we need to be cautious about that.
Great. Thank you so much. So the next question is add on the thread. It's basically, so if AI get into the pipeline and there are risks for authors, reviewers, and also in the whole process. So if something goes wrong, who is responsible? So who bears the responsibility if something goes wrong? You think AI clearly is not going to. I don't think any of the company would like to. So who's the editor? Any comments on that?
Naja, I think in that sense, probably responsibility is a concept that humans take over, right? So either you have a wrong algorithm or an error in the code that does this, or a bias in the model, or something like that. But that is also why I think most of us stressed before that you want to use these systems mostly as decision support systems at the moment, and to enhance the process or to speed up the process of scientific review. And in that sense, I think, of course, the responsibility must be defined, but it lies with the person at the end, right? And if it is the developer of a system that is used in the process and gives some guarantees of what the system should do. Yeah.
Okay, Anna.
I agree that responsibility is a human concept. I think one of the challenges here, there is both official ways that AI might enter the peer review process and unofficial ways, and I think we haven't fully grappled with that. So you might, as somebody who is on a senior program committee or as an editor, be getting reviews that have been AI generated in some way, and you don't necessarily know that. And I think that's a really challenging issue that we need to address. I don't know precisely how to address it, but I do think that the human is ultimately responsible, but I don't have a good solution for how we actually address that.
Okay, go ahead.
So I generally, this is my personal opinion, I would say. Soon in the future, I think we may better stop thinking AI is not like us, so then they should not make decision for us. Because it's philosophically speaking, right? So what do you mean by us? If AI can think things like as good as us, and then if they become as trustworthy as us, they are like us. So soon in the future, I think this becomes an issue, like, maybe discrepancy, like AI discrepancy, I don't know. I think it's last year, the scientists at the Stanford actually published a paper, I think it's Nature, talking about they let AI be a scientist. Right? Ask AI to think about the important issue in this area, and then ask AI about how to conduct the study, and then ask AI to conduct a study, and then ask AI to actually analyze the results, and then ask AI to write a paper about it, and then ask AI to review the paper, and then finally they submit the paper to the venue, top venue, and it turned out to be better than the average the submissions. What is this? Right? I would say that's, I think, one way to contribute the literature. It's like we think, right? So we can't, AI cannot beat us. So what do you mean by like something's wrong here, right? So people can use AI incorrectly on purpose. That's bad. But if we are actually sincere about using AI, I wonder what could be wrong, right? In some sense.
Okay, thank you. Right?
Yeah, I don't really know how to answer this because I think responsibility is a complex word, as pointed out. And I do think when the editor chooses to use AI in a certain way, the editor is responsible. As Anna points out, if the editor has no idea, I don't think the editor is at fault if some reviewer chooses to explicitly ignore policy and they don't catch it. The job of a scientific editor or program chair cannot be to check the reviewers. But I think ultimately those are both paradigms that look at the human being as fundamentally responsible. Noburo, I guess the question is when we think about it like you're talking about it, right? Like AI as an agent. Part of the thing that's challenging about it is that our entire models of how to think about AI as an agent are driven by kind of science fiction ideas that thought of AIs as being distinct and formed with personality. You know, the character in A Mind Forever Voyaging, or the characters in Asimov's robot series, not these things that you can instantiate and they appear and then they vanish, and they have only partial continuity, and the continuity is kind of, I don't want to say it's fake, but it's incomplete. It's not the same persona. It's compacting the memory and rereading the memory to see who it's playing. It's, you know, simulator theory by Janus and the philosophical underpinnings that produce it raise the question if there's any there, and hey, you know, Goffman social psychology, self-presentation theory does some of the same, dramaturgical theory. What's the there, and can that thing that is briefly instantiated and then vanishes forever to be replaced by something that looks just like it, is that even a thing that can be responsible? Like, I feel like unless we move to something where there's persistent ongoing continuity of existence, I don't see how a thing that is ephemeral can have responsibility in the same way. Then again, I mean, Zeno and other philosophers 2,000 years ago would say that we're not the same person ourselves, just like Goffman would. So I don't know. What is even responsibility in this world?
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the last question. So the question is about where we draw a line. And so in the 5 scenario listed below, do you think it's acceptable or not acceptable? And the first one, AI as a grammar and a clarity checker. Do you think it's acceptable? Raise your hand. Okay. Okay, great. So most of us think it's acceptable, great. So AI is a pre-screening tool, but without making decisions, just filter the submission before the human review. Acceptable or not acceptable? Okay, so audience, most of us say no? Okay, great. We have majority 2.5. Okay, so the next one, AI as a co-reviewer, assistant, the human reviewer. Okay, that's more, okay. Wow, okay. Next one, AI as a peer reviewer, like AAA did. Produce a full review overseen by human. Nope, not much. Okay. AI as a sole reviewer, no human in the loop. Nobody, okay. You? Okay.
Well, in 2026, no. But I have no idea what 2036 is going to look like. So, is nobody else going to join me in saying maybe in 10 years we'll feel okay with this?
In 10 years? Oh, optimistic.
Yeah, okay in the future.
Okay. So I think, first of all, thank you so much for answering all this. How do you think that like AI reviewer would savage like how our community built? Because junior students at review, they learn from the publication, learning from the process. If we just let AI review, how we basically break our pipeline in terms of research. Do you? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, are you saying that the act of not having students review is what breaks the pipeline, or the act of having students receive a review not from a human breaks the pipeline?
Both.
So if you could create an AI, I'm not saying you could, that could do a perfect Ryan simulation. We take all the reviews I've ever written, and we create a Ryan simulation, and even I can't tell which one is me and which one isn't. I mean, when I review a paper for the second time, I have to go back and figure out which one of these was me again. And I can always tell, usually. But like, if we had a perfect Ryan simulation, what would it matter?
Because you learned this process, but the student. Okay, you're talking about the second one. Okay, whether it's a student learn from the review. Okay, how about your comments? Student learn from making review, writing review.
So are you asking how students could learn to review by using AI?
So if students, when we use AI as a reviewer, students actually learn from reviewing other people's papers. And we may start our community, continue this community, like building up the junior
Oh, I see. Well,
researcher.
I think it depends on how students use AI, right? You know, some people, not only students, some people has a pretty good idea about how to use AI to actually grow, right? Their mindset and then be stronger. But some other people don't know how to use AI, and they use AI in a way that is pretty detrimental for learning. So we can educate the students how to use AI, right? If they want to learn by using AI. Learning from examples in theory, right? If the students see the pretty good AI review comment, they can learn from there, right? The AI makes the pretty good review comment. The student can learn from there.
And
Okay, I feel like I have 3 different trains of thoughts that I want to enter into here. So I'm going to try to remember some of them and maybe not. Okay, one thing I want to get at, Ryan, responding back to you, you brought up philosophy, and it's the same thing. And I think there's another philosophical issue to be brought in here, which is about intentionality, and that humans have intentions, and at least in our current construal of what we are talking about with AI, AI does not have intentions. And I think that that intentionality and intending to review the feedback and make an evaluative judgment about it is actually a really important part of peer review. And so I think that's something that would be lost. A second statement I wanted to make about, to your point on, and about what do we lose if students sort of don't learn by writing the reviews? And I think right now we do a pretty poor job of teaching people how to write reviews. I'm sure some people are wonderful about mentoring students, and this is what you put in a review and how we do it, and so on. I'm pretty sure the first time I wrote a review, it was like, well, I've seen some people review my papers. Now I'm going to write a review. And so I learned something through that process, but I think that we could do a whole, whether or not AI is taking over reviewing, I think we could do a whole lot better job training people on how to write reviews. And then the final thing I want to say about what is lost, our keynote speaker, I think yesterday, sort of cited this thing of readers who don't read and writers who don't write. And I think about reviewing and writing the review helps me to process. So it helps me to understand and learn from doing that process, and I think that would be lost. I think also by reading other people's reviews, which I assume are them encoding something about how they see this paper and where it contributes to the field, helps inform my own thinking, whether I am another reviewer on the paper or they're reviewing my own work. And I think that those are things that would be lost, that we are doing actual work and thinking when we're writing and reading reviews, not simply, I need a product, which is a review.
Yeah, probably I want to add 2 aspects to that. One is the whole discussion about the development of science and science denial. Yeah, so because in public discussions nowadays you're confronted often with kind of semi-scientific or argumentations, and I think it's important to and that links to the second aspect. So how do we develop that idea of quality of science, of argumentation about science, and that links to the second aspect, that is the social construction of communities. So how does this work? So the process you just described, like going from a junior reviewer or PhD towards, like, I like this community building idea of there's a lot of context to it. So one part of that, and that links to the keynote of Vince this morning, right? One part of it might be that you're trained on, okay, this is the way how you write a good review. But of course, there's a lot others to it, discussing with peers about that paper, getting different perspectives of the paper, seeing new work about what you read, and trying to link it to that. So I think there's a lot more that has to be taken into account in that whole process. And that is essential for our community building. So if you cut that off, then we will have a real problem, right?
Thank you so much. So I think that's all the question I have. And I open the floor. Any questions? Yes, there are a lot of questions. Okay. If you think your voice is loud, just yell.
Okay, this is Hagen from University of Pennsylvania. So this is a very interesting topic about AI review. So I have a question for panelists. Based on your experience, like most of you are editors of GEDM or GAID, right? So after the popularity of AI, so when you look at the reviewers' feedback compared before generative AI, what differences have you found? And the second question is, this is really a good research study. So because based on your perception, right, yeah, that is an individual perception. So whether we can compare like human review versus the AI review, right? Yeah, we can find some like training materials for our graduate students or junior reviewers, but I'm not sure whether the data is available submission either to these conferences or the journals.
I just kick off, but I can answer pretty shortly. I've not seen reliable data on the changes of reviews so far, but it definitely would be very interesting to look at that. But we definitely see changes in the number of influx or submissions. But I don't have any reliable data on the quality of reviews or the changes in reviews at the moment.
I don't have anything specific about JDM changes in reviews. I will say there's a nice paper about this AAAI experiment that was talked about, and they did some surveys asking both like program chairs and senior program chairs, as well as the authors themselves, about various characteristics of the different reviews, both the human and the AI one. So that's an interesting place to look at some of the differences. In terms of like doing research on this, I don't know that any of that data is available, but I do know that there are some data sets with peer reviews out there.
Anecdotally, most reviews I can't tell the difference. They look about the same as I'd expect, but every once in a while I see one that was so blatantly written by an LLM, and I basically, when I notice that, just delete it from my brain.
Yeah, I don't have any clear data, but I see, like, generally speaking, the reviewers' comments are becoming more friendly, right? Just like the LLM's text looks pretty friendly. And then I see lots of similarities among the reviewers, right? Here is interesting the research maybe you want to conduct. Two ideas. One is actually compute the similarity among the reviewers, right? And then I think before and then after LLM hit the market, I think the similarity goes sky high. Right? That's one idea. Another idea is actually do the kind of human version of the Turing test. You ask people, is this AI review or human review? Then if you tell people, you know, this is AI review, do you like it? Or do you think this is valid? and then many people say no, or more like say no. But if you say this is written by human, do you think it's valid? They tend to say yes, I think. So another interesting kind of psychological research.
Can I just comment briefly to that? It was interesting in this AAAI research. In fact, the authors and the program chairs all found that the AI reviews were more constructive and preferred them.
Hi, my name is Daniel Beck. I'm from RMIT University in Australia. Thanks to all the members of the panel. It's been an interesting discussion. And in particular, I'd like to thank Anna for mentioning the incentives of peer review, or the non-existent incentives of peer reviewing. And my question is related to that, but going a bit beyond. I feel like sometimes when you have discussions about AI, we're talking about the solution without discussing about the problem. And I see the panel mentioning scale, but it feels like taking scale for granted. And I'm not convinced that is something you should take for granted. Just as an example, I have a friend who is a full professor in pure mathematics in a prestigious university in Britain. For many like metrics of success, they're quite successful, and they publish a grand total of 26 papers, and they have an H index of 6, right? So my question is, do we need that scale? Can we be more like pure maths? Can we go back to longer journal-style papers so we don't have to review 40 papers a year, for example? And is there something like intrinsic about our field that requires us to keep churning papers all the time? And I don't believe that's the case. I think we could be like pure maths. And then is there a way AI could be useful for us to reduce our scale and make us a little bit more like productive in a scientific perspective? Yes, so that's just my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I guess my response would be, that sounds nice, but the various ways you'd achieve that world, I think the solution as far as I know of them, the solution is worse than the problem. I mean, we could be like the Psychonomic Society. If you're not a member, if you're not part of the club, you can't publish. That's one solution to it. That'd cut the number of papers, but it would have flaws. We could say, because part of the reason why we have so many papers here is because people are entering the field. I love that. We could say, okay, every person can only be on 2 papers. That would cut the number of papers, but at the expense of, for example, there are some academics who participate in lots of projects and make contributions in lots of places. Do we say don't make contributions in lots of places? I just don't know a solution that gets it so that everyone's publishing way less papers that doesn't have various other consequences. And mathematics is a very different field than the empirical field that we work in. So I'm not saying that's not a great idea. I just don't know how we would actually do that.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the great discussion. My name is Anis Fubaker from Montreal, Canada. Actually, we live in a day and age where the AI can find gaps in the literature, come up with ideas, then design experiments, and then from there analyze the results, and then at the end write the paper. And what we're talking about is here at the end of the process having an AI to review that same paper that have been through AI all along. And so far, I mean, the only safeguard we had was the review, where we had humans break that circularity. One might say, why not? I mean, it would be a good age to be a researcher. We don't have to do anything. AI will do it all. But we could also say, why bother then doing research? And then also, my fear and having the AI entering the review process is that it's a Pandora box. Of course, we can start saying, okay, AI will only do pre-screenings, but then, as you said, Ryan, in 2036, maybe it will do it all. So I fear, like, we're getting into some kind of circularity where the researchers won't have to produce research, just be like a man in the middle one and push the buttons. So what do you think about that?
What do you think about it?
So, sorry, I don't get it. Can you clarify the question?
So my point is, like, through the whole research and publication pipeline, AI may intervene at some point or another. So we'll have AIs producing papers, AI reviewing papers, and then AI analyzing that review, modifying the paper. So in the end, what are we doing as researchers? That's my worry. At someday it will end up like that.
Oh, you're asking if the entire research paper was done by AI,
Yes.
and then the AI reviews that work.
So what's the point
What's the point?
of our community, scientific community?
No. Okay. Hold on. At least I'm here because I love research, right? I'm here, at least I love to show my work to other people, right? So then, if you ask, what's the point of AI do the entire work?
What's the point for human if AI
Oh,
can do
what's the
everything?
point of human with AI?
If AI can do everything,
Yeah,
what's the
if
point?
AI can
Is
do
that right?
everything, what's the point of a human still do it? Because I love it, right? Because it's fun. As long as there is a job for me, I continue, right? Like I said, I think the AI do everything. That may be one way to make a contribution to literature. I think so.
Is that your question, right?
Am I answering your question? Cool.
Okay. You don't want...
No, you don't.
I was just going to say, I guess maybe to your question, I think is saying, like, let's assume that AI can do all of these things. And I think one of the arguments that I feel like I've heard about social construction and meaning and evaluation and sort of the values of the scientific community is that I'm hearing an objection, not just, oh, hey, today's AI isn't capable enough to do it, but that there's sort of a more fundamental sense of that's missing the point of what this enterprise is. And so I think I'm echoing with you, like, yeah, what's the point if it's doing everything? Hey, we've missed the point, if that's what we get to.
Can I clarify my point? I still believe the AI cannot replace. Let me see. You're right. I really believe AI cannot replace us, because the beginning point is we can only make the beginning point. It is only our creativity that can start the pipeline. I believe. I don't think AI can make the nice starting point as human being do. Right? I may be wrong on this, right? The Stanford researchers find the sweet spot that AI can work, but that's only the small spot, right? I think there are a whole bunch of more complicated problems that we can start thinking about. Once we have the problem to solve, then we can ask AI how to solve it, right? We can ask AI to help us to solve it. But I think the AI can survive without us.
So, and I see this somebody eager to ask a question, so I won't take too long, but I wish I could agree with the two of you. I love what I do, but I'm not here because I love what I do. This isn't ultimately physics. We aren't ultimately physicists trying to discover the ultimate nature of the universe, and we aren't ultimately humanities scholars exploring the human condition. We're education researchers. And to me, if an entirely AI process could solve these problems better than we could improve education, could improve students' lives better than I could, and if there was still a need for learning, if it could solve what I do better than me, I would hand it over, because that's what I'm here for. And then I would go do interactive fiction.
So,
Yeah, probably one short point added to that. I was just trying to think about the analogy in software engineering we're now looking at, and there, of course, more and more code is written with agents and so on. So, some partly in Ryan's field here, so to say, if there is a good opportunity for exchange of arguments of these. Of research done by different agents and have a reflection on that and this exchange of arguments, I think it would be interesting to mix these opportunities. Yeah.
So I have a question related to, I think a lot of this is kind of bringing up for me a little bit of like existential dread. And, you know, talking about these issues. And on the one hand, even in my own team, you know, I see some of the AI tools and the things that are going on as, you know, an equity thing. My boss is not a writer. He has always struggled with that, right? He says that's the hardest thing for him to do, and that is really limiting for him. And suddenly now, you know, he's able to use AI to pour things out, but then when I get a handle on it, it doesn't sound anything like what I want it to sound like. It doesn't sound like us, right? Mm-hmm. And I spend a lot of time working on making sure that the language is right. It's a craft for me. Mm-hmm. And I need to know every word that is in that paper. I don't like to have, you know, go through and hand things over. I want to know. And it's like when I come to the conferences and I sit, you know, and I'm listening to people's presentations and going through, and I think that process of reading and learning and understanding, you know, handing things over to, you know, an AI. If an AI could create a paper from start to finish, what is our role? And I think the more we hand reviews over without looking through and doing that close read ourselves and doing that analysis ourselves, you know, the kind of less back and forth between this peer community happens. So I think, you know, for me, I'm not sure how to balance the, you know, kind of conflicting in a way where AI might be able to bring new participants into the community where maybe that was the skill set that was keeping them out. At the same time, how do we keep the integrity of the process from just becoming an AI loop?
Is this a question or a comment?
I guess any thoughts on how,
okay.
How do you balance those things?
Okay, any thoughts? It's a tough question, yes. Okay. Manu?
Nobody's answering.
Mm-hmm. Our panel?
No. Oh.
I think we all agree with you. It's a tough question, yeah.
So thank you for the panel, actually very interesting. I have a bunch of questions, so I will try to stick to one, maybe two. The first thing, like I'm European, like Marcus. One thing that is very important to us is data sovereignty. So this has been more or less discussed during your panel. There is some sort of, like in the pipeline of review nowadays, there is some sort of stilt AI. So for instance, if you use the Google Scholar PDF readers, it will make a summary of your PDF. So that means that if a reviewer opens the PDF he has to review with Google Scholar PDF reader, Google has access to the information that has not been published, that is not official. So in terms of data sovereignty, I think for Europeans at least, and maybe Marcus, you have a perspective, that could be an issue. We, at some point with Min and Guanliang for AIED, we reviewed moving from EasyShare to Open Review. And then we found some sort of summary of what will happen when you submit. And one of the summary was like, if you submit to Open Review, you accept your submission, not your accepted paper, but your submission to be part of the data set. So my first question is like, is it acceptable from your perspective? And the follow-up to some extent is probably some of the points that you have behind. I would have a different answer if I'm told that the AI we're using is a local AI as compared that if it's a commercial AI or if it's like a contained AI. So what are your thoughts about this notion of data sovereignty overall? And my second question very quickly is like I work a lot with physicians, and right now we are working on some situation where we want to use AI for standardization. So they have some systems of evaluation of the medical students, and actually the judges, sometimes they are tired, so they will not evaluate the same way during the same day. So the good thing about using AI for them, for evaluation, is to make sure that the evaluation will be standardized. And my second question will be, to which extent is a review process different than just the other evaluation reflection we have in this conference? Like we are discussing about how to evaluate with AI. So is the review process a different problem?
Okay. Question? Anyone take the first one?
I just kick off with a remark to the first point. What it triggers with me, or what brings to think about, is the whole discussion about digital sovereignty. This is huge in Europe and in different countries. Different countries set up their own national LLMs trained with a certain corpus or so. Actually, I think if you do such a thing, like using these tools, someone, probably the society or whatsoever, should have trained models for dedicated thing where you can ensure the quality and the expertise and the information going into that system and ensure the quality. Yeah. So, but that's an important issue. What is behind the system? What is it used for? Who owns the information and the trained models that are built there?
I'll take one other aspect of your question, which was about, oh, if you submit to this place or to this conference, I believe you're saying like you have to agree to be part of a data set. And to me, that seems very coercive. I think, I don't think that's acceptable for a conference to make. I've seen things where maybe to get to be able to see an AI review of your paper, you also have to agree that be part of a data set, and that feels less coercive to me because there's a thing you can still participate in the conversation, be a part of the community without that. But I think just as people can opt out of research in other settings, we need to make it not coercive here.
Any other comments about how the review different from the doctors? That's the second part of the question, right? No. Okay. So I think we still have one more question, and that's our final question, 1 minute.
Okay, I have a question. What's your worst case scenario for the next 10 years? People who are running these conferences, people who are running these journals, people who are doing reviews. What's your worst case scenario, and how do you kind of prevent that scenario from happening?
So the worst scenario for the next 10
Worst scenario.
Yeah, the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario of keep using AI?
Of the at the journal. What's the worst case scenario for the review? Go ahead.
I have a proposal for you. Probably on Saturday we did a workshop on design fiction, and you can get a lot of dystopian and utopian stories out of these things. Probably we should just, if you want a worst case scenario, just try that out and let it write some design fiction stories about that. But I think the questions before there have been mentioned some worst case scenarios, but I think it's very difficult to forespell anything at this pace of development at the moment, right? And to your second part of the question, I think there's an ongoing discussion, for sure, I know, for the Journal of IJED, how to deal with this, how to ensure quality, and there's a very high level of awareness of that the quality is essential for the community.
say one quick thing, which is, in addition to quality, I think trust is really important. And one worst case scenario is that our community and the public at large loses trust in the scientific enterprise, I would argue is already happening. That isn't particularly just on AI's peer review, but is a thing that keeps me up at night.
So the worst case scenario for me in 10 years is either our society is ban using AI completely, or the AI actually replaces us.
So let me actually sketch out a more detailed scenario if nobody minds. We go with a proposal that that nobody can be on more than one paper. That massively reduces the input of the people who are really deeply in the field. At the same time, we allow AI unrestrictedly to anybody, and the field gets flooded with submissions from all kinds of people who aren't in the field, don't share the values, actually just want to get papers for getting promotions or whatever other reason. And so we get a flood of 70,000 papers into AI and Ed, EDM, and learning at scale, of which 100 come from people who actually care about the field. Then there's some process, because we can't handle it all, so we have AI make all the decisions. The AI has learned over a case of 5 years that the field now believes slop. Because everything coming in is slop, and everything gets accepted as slop, and human beings can't read all this stuff, and the people who don't care are the ones reviewing. And so, when what we end up with is a conference full of slop, and all of us who still care about the deep issues, the scientific issues, the impact on learners, we're all forced out, and we have nowhere to go. That, I think, is a worst case scenario, and it involves getting more things wrong than just the use of AI. But I actually believe in us to not mess up that way, but I also believe in the ability of humans to mess up.
Thank you so much. And it's concluded this panel. And thank you. If you still have questions, would you please just ask our panelists when they are still here. Thank you so much. Thank you.